So maybe start there and explain to me and everyone listening, what did you do as a career? How'd that kind of start your journey? And then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Glad to share it. And I'll just try to keep it short and sweet and to the point and, just try to hit the high points. So obviously graduated from BYU, got hired right out of college to work in sales with a marketing degree for Dow Chemical. That's when we moved to Phoenix. I got assigned to Phoenix to work in the agricultural market. So I was just a beginning sales guy. Long story short, after 6 years, a good friend that I met in Mesa, he happened to be a medical device distributor for Zimmer, which concentrated in orthopedic products, primarily total knees, total hips.
Mm,
And back at that time in the early 80s, it was just kind of getting started.
yeah.
Total joints themselves started to come out maybe the late 60s, 70s, but it really started to take off in the early 80s. So I had 3 kids, a pregnant wife, hopped in the car, moved from Phoenix to Denver and began this illustrious career calling on orthopedic surgeons for which I had absolutely no training. So it's definitely called jumping into the deep end and learning how to swim or else you drown. But
Yeah.
it was great. It was a great career. I called on orthopedic surgeons, was just the sales guy. Then I had an opportunity to help manage the distributor's office. Then I jumped into orthopedic spine. And then being out of Denver, got hired as a regional manager. So we would then go by and set up distributors
Oh,
throughout the West. So my job was to find the distributors that could sell spine or total joints or whatever it might be and help establish the business. Ended up finishing with a great company called Biocomposites. But 13 years, we kind of focused in bone growth.
mm,
And then we had a unique product that could be used in treating and addressing orthopedic infections.
oh,
So the first thing you want in a total joint is you never ever want an infection.
right.
And unfortunately, some of them happen. And so we found a very unique way of how to treat those infections, helped a lot of people, kind of helped get this company up and running. And it was very successful, had a great time doing it. But the bottom line is, it was just sales. It was learning how to work with people, how to communicate, how to carry on conversations, and how to convince a surgeon to use your product when he was really using somebody else's product. And the funny thing about orthopedic surgeons, the saying is they'll change spouses before they'll change their implants. Sorry if any orthopedic surgeons are listening.
So
So
what
they
was,
don't change very often. So it's a long process, but difficult, very competitive, kind of only the strong survive. Um, and there's a lot of uniqueness to the medical device industry. I'll just leave it at that.
yeah, it sounds like a very, I mean, because everyone, there's a lot of people who do sales, right? Now, some
Mm.
do sales well and some do sales not so well. But what would you say in your experience, especially in that industry? It sounds like one of the tougher industries to sell into. What kind of sets you apart? Because obviously having a career in sales, there's a difference between being, the summer sales bro who does some pest control for a couple summers until he moves on to a new career,
Right.
and the guy who does sales for his whole career.
Right. Well, I will just say what my sales philosophy was, and it's kind of a harder one, but I think it benefits in the long term. And that is, I'm a firm believer that people buy from people, they don't buy from corporations. So for me, it's all about the relationship, not what can I do, what can I say, who can I bribe, who can I take on a expensive Cabo fishing trip, to get them to switch to use my total joints, even though that was done by some of my competitors.
Right.
Um, it's, I think the key to success in sales is genuine sincerity, caring about the person, and having it be all about the relationship. And I'm not here just to sell you something, I'm here to help you solve problems.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. How did so what's that dynamic like? Because you mentioned you're working with surgeons, you're working with business professionals. Sometimes in the sales, world, you're working with customers and clients, and sometimes you're working with businesses. In this case, you're kind of doing both. You're working with a business,
Yeah.
but it also happens to be a surgeon and a business professional, so it's kind of a mix between the two. What's that like?
It can be difficult at times because my main responsibilities once I got out of the direct sales position
Mm,
was to go find good, honorable distributors that would not only represent and carry your product, but to work with them, calling on orthopedic surgeons and helping them find new business. So you're right.
yeah,
It's really trying to sell two different avenues. So the distributor really represented myself and the company and our products.
right.
And we had to do the same thing, go in and establish the relationships with the surgeons. And I think in retrospect, looking back on it, any good sales process is going to take time.
Mm,
And people are going to have to learn to trust you. And you're going to be put in situations where you are going to be tested when it comes to being trusted. And I love the medical device industry. It's fantastic. It's competitive. It's exciting. But there's also a lot of shady stuff that goes on. I mean, I'm sure it's in any business,
yeah,
but I mean, people sometimes do what they can to buy business or to call in favors or um, try to establish relationships, and I'll just leave it at that. But you just have to take the time, get people to trust you, and therefore, I think it is based just on integrity and honor. And do people really trust you? And do they want to have a working relationship with you?
yeah. No, that makes sense. You mentioned within the medical industry, and you can answer this if you want to. I don't want to open up a can of worms, but you hear a lot nowadays where, I think there's been a lot of distrust in the medical industry. Because it just that's kind of been a vibe in kind of probably through social media, opening that can of worms a little bit more. And you mentioned there are some trustworthy and not so trustworthy things in all aspects of business. So what was some of the things you experienced and saw working in that field, being in it as long as you were?
Well, a couple of things. It's going to be interesting who sees this. I might be getting some phone calls. So let me just share two quick stories. So some of our competitors, and this is before in the medical device industry, they established a lot of guidelines and rules.
Right.
So let me be fair and say that. But they would fly out of Denver or Colorado. They would fly a lot of surgeons down to Mexico for a
Right.
weekend or a week fishing trip,
Mm,
and just sponsor them. And obviously when they were down there, they would share information about their products, and I'm sure they would do everything legitimately down there. But not everybody can afford to invest thousands of dollars or whatever it was, tens of thousands, to send 5 surgeons down to Cabo and go fishing for a week and stay in hotels. and
right.
and obviously, while it doesn't guarantee them that they're gonna switch, there was a pretty good likelihood sometimes. And they established those friendships. And also, to be fair, as a way to say thank you for the business and all of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff went on. It's gotten better over the decades, but there were a lot of shady things. The other thing has to do with surgeons that by companies are asked to be consultants.
Mm,
There are legitimate consultants. Companies can pay a surgeon legitimately for advice and counsel. But sometimes, like anything else, that can be taken advantage of.
right.
And I had a personal experience where one particular surgeon cornered me one time and he said, I'm ready to switch and I'm excited to switch. And by the way, my wife and I really want to go to Europe for 2 weeks. And I said, well, that's great. When are you going to go?
Right.
And so the conversation went on, and he said, well, we really, really want to go to Europe for 2 weeks. And then, I'm a little slow on the uptake sometimes, but, the bells went on. And then I just said, listen, I would love to help, but ethically, that's not something that I can do.
Right.
And he said, I highly respect your position on that. It's a joy talking to you, but I'm not going to switch.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I do want to add the caveat. There's a lot of great people in medical device. There's a lot of high integrity, honest people. It's just like any other industry. You're going to have your high ethical, you're going to have your gray area, and then you're going to have the area that I don't care what it is. I got to hit a number and I'll do anything to get there.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. And you make a good point because I think too often people, we see the outrage online and that's all we see. Right. And so people throw, the baby out with the bathwater. And you're right. There's a lot of good people in every industry, you know? And it's like, it's like anything. Let's take like the police movement, repealing the police. Everyone threw all the police out. It was like, is there really that many police officers who are bad, or is it just we have a few bad eggs in every department because that's people? And so, but it is tough when anytime there's money involved, you're probably going to have people who want to take advantage and utilize the system to their benefit, and especially if they've seen it done a few times, they're going to continue to try and crank on that switch to get what they can out of it. But how does it makes me so I'm curious your opinion on this. Um, I think a lot of, especially young people, I think we hear about, how money can corrupt, how, making lots of money, it's kind of viewed in a negative light. But I think a lot of people want to be successful. They want to make good money. They want to, um, kind of have that trip to Europe, one might say, right? So where's that balance between, making good money and putting it to good use, and answering that question between how do I make a good living, make good money, but not, go in the opposite direction of what I'm trying to achieve?
Well, let me answer it this way. I don't think it's about money. I think it's about character, integrity, and honesty.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what are our lives all about? We're trying to figure out who we are, what kind of person we are. And again, not to get off on a tangent, but maybe in the eternal aspects,
Mm.
what kind of person do we want to be through the eternities?
Yeah.
Who are we? And I mean, we all make many, many decisions daily, yearly, whatever it might be. Every one of those decisions is kind of a little building block of our personality, our character, our integrity. And at the end of the day, I think that's what matters the most.
Yeah.
Um, I think we all get hung up too much on money, and I understand why. I mean, trust me, trying to hit a number, 5 kids, trying to be successful, go through there. Oh my gosh. I mean, there's many nights I just couldn't sleep. The pressure is just tremendous trying to hit a number. Because one of the problem with sales is you're only as good as your number, really.
Right.
Everybody can give you as many hugs and attaboys as they want. But at the end of the day, if you're not consistently hitting your number, Bill, let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
And of course, hitting the numbers tied into money, and money makes life easier. And there's nothing wrong with money. I think sometimes we lose the perspective on that. Remember what the saying is: the love of money is the root of all evil.
Mm.
Money's not evil,
Yeah.
but it's the love of money. And is it the love of money that makes you become a person that's just not a nice person because you associate money with success and power?
Right. Right.
And the irony is we can't take any of it with us.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, I it's just, I worked my butt off for this, and this. And, what are the 2 things you've never seen at a funeral? A moving van and a Brinks truck,
Yeah. No, it's true.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think money does get the bad rap oftentimes. But in a lot of situations, because if you, as you put it, if you love money and that's your sole focus and that's what you put above everything else, then your decisions are going to be warped by that desire, right? So even if it's
Right.
not the right choice to make, that desire for the money and the power and whatever you associate with is what you're going to choose, even if it's not the right choice. So yeah, I agree. I think it comes down more to what you value in your life and what decisions you choose to make and what do you prioritize when you make those decisions. Um, you mentioned, and I think in talking to several people on the podcast who've been in business, done sales, been worked with people, I think is the bigger part. Um, they see, they get to see behind the curtain of what choices people make and kind of how people act. And what is running a business and being in business taught you about people and their decision making? Because you mentioned that your kind of fascination with why people do what they do and human nature. And I've seen your TikTok as well, kind of discussing the different aspects of life and why people do what they do. So explain that a little bit more to me and what you've seen.
Wow, that's such a loaded, interesting question. And it never ceases to amaze me sometimes how people pretend and then how they act in the long run.
Yeah,
So, again, getting back to integrity and character and your true personality, I think that's all over time. Somebody can be a great person your first meeting or second meeting or whatever, and the one thing I've seen in the business world is very loving, sincere, genuine people who really love people for who they are and they're not judgmental. I mean, I had an orthopedic surgeon that, at least on my end, I considered him as my adopted dad. Such a kind, loving guy, extremely successful, extremely busy. I'm sure he had plenty of money,
yeah,
but you would never know that.
mm,
But yet, then you have these people that are successful or able to obtain some money and they think it automatically equals power and I'm better than you. And
right,
that's how they kind of come off. So I've learned in sales a little bit. I don't mean to be negative, but it seems like the vast majority of the time, people will disappoint.
mm,
And that gets back to the human nature that I don't really care what you do, but what I'm intrigued with is why.
yeah,
I'm just a white guy and I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to have all the answers. I don't know why everybody does the things that they do, but I've had people I've worked with that have just been huge disappointments. People that I put in positions to be extremely successful and they never returned once and said thank you,
yeah,
and I guess my only answer to that again, Jesus cleansed 10 lepers, remember? What was his line? Were there not 10?
yeah, yeah,
But only one came back to say thank you. Just stop and think about that. You have leprosy, the worst disease somebody could possibly have. And of the 9 people that got cured, why did you never go back, acknowledge, and just simply say thank you?
yeah.
I don't know.
What do you think it is? Why do you think what do you think the root cause comes from? Because you're right, there are good
Pride.
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 Mm,
I The older I get, the more I'm convinced that whatever the issue is in one way or another, there's so many different degrees of pride, right? But I think you could contribute most of that stuff to being pride and prideful. I had a talk with a friend the other day. I think there's a big difference between being proud and having pride.
yeah,
I mean, I'm proud of my kids. I'm proud of you for scoring a touchdown. I'm proud of you for scoring 30 points in the basketball game. But you're prideful if you think because you scored 30, you're better than everybody else and you think of yourself above everybody else.
right,
Mhm.
yeah. So you think
So I don't know that that's the answer, but that's one man's opinion, pride.
mm, so you feel like it's the pursuit to put yourself above others that leads to those
Wasn't that what everybody tries to do most of the time?
yeah, yeah, I think so. Well, how do you think, how do you think faith plays into that? Because I know a lot of people wonder at times, um, and obviously we're of the same faith. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Boy, that's a mouthful, no matter how many times you try to cut it. But,
That's
um,
right. It's a long one.
but for people who are, because there's lots of good people who aren't members of our faith necessarily,
Mhm.
and um, I think people wonder at times. I think we're set up as people to think our way's right versus another way's wrong, and see the world kind of in black and white. I think as I've gone on, more often than not, the world's a lot more gray than black and white, at least from
Mhm.
experiences I've had. And so, how does faith play into that? Because w- when you have two, when you think that your faith's right, but you have other people who are good people who are of another faith, what do you think the purpose of that is? Do you think it's just to give us a good foundation to lean upon? Do you think it's to help guide our directions and our choices? What do you think?
So let's forget for a moment about membership in a particular religion or church. If you take a step back, and again, we're talking about human nature and all these characteristics, right? The type of person you truly are, regardless of your faith, membership, whatever it might be, isn't it all about becoming Christ like and obtaining Christ like characteristic? In other words, take a step back, whether you believe in Christ or not. I think everybody knows he was a good person, yada, yada, yada. So take a step back. What were the characteristics of this man called Jesus Christ? Who was he? How did he treat others? Was he humble? Was he patient? Was he kind? Was he loving? Was he judgmental? I mean, how did he live his life? And so all the people in the world, I guess, if you're going to look at it from a where am I on the spectrum? Yes, being a member of the church, yes, believing in Christ and all that. As I get older and older, and next 10 or 15 years, I'll probably be dead. I constantly think about where am I on the Christ like attributes scale.
Hmm.
I'm not perfect, made a lot of mistakes in my life, but am I moving forward? Am I moving backward? Or am I stagnant? Or do I not even know who he is and what all this means?
Right.
So I don't know. That's just the thought that popped into my head. It's not about membership. It's about the type of person you want to be, not only here, but if you believe in an eternal existence, what kind of person do you want to be there?
Yeah. What do you think? Because obviously you've coached people before. You coach sports and athletics. What do you think the answer is on that? How do you gauge it? I think for athletes, they're always trying to gauge their performance, right? Am I improving? Am I not improving? So in a spiritual sense, as you kind of look to yourself and go, okay, am I becoming more like Christ? Am I becoming less like Christ? Is my relationship with Christ? How do you gauge that? And then maybe people can pull kind of for themselves, how they can gauge a relationship with Christ.
I don't think it's what you say. I think it's what you do. And here's the critical point: over time, right?
Yeah.
So, am I a good person for a couple hours a day? And I'm sorry. But I mean, the person that you want to be and become, are you that person as consistently as possible? And just are you trying to get better and better and better?
Yeah.
The pearl inside that shell, it doesn't become a pearl quickly.
Right.
It takes a long time, and it takes a long time. Do you know why a pearl becomes a pearl? Because it's constantly agitated and rubbed in sand.
Yeah.
It's only polished over a long period of time. And I think that defines who we are, not in the short run, but in the long run. And we all have peaks and we all have valleys. We all make mistakes. And frankly, I don't think he cares if we make mistakes. Just my personal opinion is I think he kind of expects us to,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, come on. None of us are going to be perfect, but yet we all want to be perfect, expect ourselves to be perfect, and we have this unrealistic expectation for ourselves.
Yeah.
So, just me, I think that answer is become who you want to become, work on it, effort, succeed, fail, succeed, fail, succeed, fail, but you're moving in the right direction and getting better. And it's over time. It's over a lifetime, if not eternities. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, how long is eternity?
Right. Yeah. I think we have such a limited understanding of what's to come in the future, after this
Right.
life. And
Right.
so to think in that way, it's difficult. But yeah, I think the worst thing you could do is be stagnant, right? You know, the goal is to keep on moving forward in some way. It doesn't always have to be fast, right? Sometimes you may feel like it's a little bit of a slower journey, but continuously failing and succeeding, as you mentioned, and going through that process of just refining yourself. It's probably the
Yeah.
goal.
So, one of my big things, just me personally over time, is perspective. So, we're on this planet Earth. We look at night and see X number of stars, right? I don't know if I can prove it, but according to Chat GPT, it's got to be true, right?
Yeah.
If you just Chat GPT or Google how many planets they think exist within the solar system, and then you ask something like how many grains of sand there are throughout the entire world, somebody's estimated and calculated the number of grains of sand.
Right.
Now, if you want to blow your mind, it's estimated somewhere between, I don't know, 1,000 or 100,000 planets per grain of sand. Yeah, just play around with that. Whether the numbers are off or whatever, that's not the point. The point is, to your point, we're so limited in our perspective. I'm just on Earth looking at the stars at night, and I'm seeing such a small part of what's out there. Take a step back, try to gain a greater perspective of this life and maybe what you hope and think may come, and just live your life for the long, long, long run and not just to hit a number.
Right.
Well, I got to hit my number this month, Bill. What's he talking about?
Yeah. So here's a question off that because I think a lot of people, you're right. We're in the grand scheme of things when you look at it from that perspective, our individual problems and our individual lives, and even the everyone we communicate with, just as a society, it's so I don't want to say meaningless, but it's not. Nothing's ever. If you really look at it in the right perspective, nothing's ever as big as we probably make it out to be. And, so how do you balance that? Because I think sometimes I've had that question for myself where, you look up at the big sky and you go, okay, I'm just a speck on this little planet in a sea of plants upon plants upon planets. And I think that can be a daunting feeling because you start going, why do I care so much about this thing I'm working towards? Why does it matter? So how do you find the balance between pushing forward and still realizing that your life does have meaning and it does have purpose and you need to achieve and strive, but also realize that you don't need to, it's not as big of a deal as it really, you're probably putting on it, if that makes sense. How do you strike that?
No, it makes perfect sense. It's a great question. And I guess the best answer again is just trying to gain that right balance and perspective. I think the problem with all of us in life is we expect our lives to be perfectly balanced. If I was the scale, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm out of balance a little bit. Well, the reality is, when are we ever perfectly in balance?
Right.
And it's just taking that perspective, and what you're trying to get rid of is the big time out of balance one way or the other. For me personally, I kind of wrap that around. I'm grateful for the belief and the perspective that I have of an eternal life, and that when I die, it's not over. I'm a very logical person, and I just have a very hard time logically,
Mm.
forget the religious side, just logically when I think about the vastness of space and trying to study that a little bit. And I mean, how does space not end? I don't know. I can't even wrap my head around there,
Yeah.
So just everything's out there. And even the scientists say that the universe seems to be at least 90% organized.
Right.
It doesn't seem to be random. And then you look at the complexities of our human body. If you really want to understand and just get wowed, just Google, investigate, how does the brain work?
Yeah.
How does our eye really work? How many systems do we have within our body? I mean, the gallons of blood that the heart pumps daily and throughout a lifetime, unbelievable. I mean, just stuff like this, it just helps me see that I'm here to work hard right now. I'm going to do everything I can to be successful. I need to be successful. I need to make money, but money doesn't determine who I am.
Mhm.
So I'm going to try to be as successful as I can, have as much money as I can, because let's face it, it does help.
Yeah.
It does help.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing wrong with going after money. But if it changes who you are or changes who you are going to become, and it's not a good change, then how is that going to really help you in the long run?
Right.
So it's just trying to keep perspective of the short term in this life and the long term in the eternities, if that's what you believe in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a once again, it's about that perspective, like you mentioned, keeping that core your core foundation or your core principles in the I don't want to say the rear view mirror, but at least in sight, right? It may not
Yeah.
be there's I can't remember the quote, but someone I was listening to talks about, rather than looking for balance in life, looking at seasons of your life. You're going to have seasons where you're more busy and maybe work or money take a priority. And you may have seasons where that's not the focus and maybe it's family or, spirituality or whatever it may be. But realizing that there's a season to things and I guess trying to identify what season of your life you're in that moment and keep those core principles at least at the center, I think is probably the primary place to have it. So that way you don't
Yeah.
deviate too far from course.
Yeah. Let me add, just me personally,
Yeah.
I believe that's why God put us here in the first place, to go through all that, to study it out, to make decisions, to have the ability to have choice, to
Yeah.
make good choices, to make bad choices. How do I go make money and take care of 5 kids and a wife? How do I keep happy wife, happy life, right? So he's very well aware, I think, just my personal opinion, he's very well aware of the struggles we have, the inequalities that this earth provides, the challenges, the tragedies. I mean, why do some of the worst things happen on this earth? Horrible, terrible thing. And I hear it all the time. Oh, if there's a God, why does that happen? Well, there's a good, there's a bad, there's opposition, there's choice, there's agency. For me personally, I think it's all about growth.
Mm,
And the only way to grow is to experience.
yeah.
You can read whatever you want about operating out of a book,
Yeah.
but there ain't nothing like scalpel, make the incision, and actually doing it.
Right.
You can read all you want about being married, but it's a little bit different when
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 you're-
you, when you and they say I do, right?
yeah.
So I'm a big we're in this for the experience, the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs, and don't get too overly dramatic with an up, a down, an in, or an out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think, I find it interesting that you bring up living experiences. And in some of my more recent guests I've had on the podcast, they talk about just the dissatisfaction with life, especially with young people, and correlating that a lot with I think nowadays because of technology and social media, which are all great things, young people have and everybody of every age, but young people specifically, they have the opportunity to witness other people's lives at a very detailed level and not experience any of it for themselves. And so they're getting somewhat of the I don't know if it's the dopamine hit, but the joy of seeing an outcome, but not actually having to live and experience it. And I think, kind of going off what you're saying, I think that really leads to where we see a lot of people depressed and dissatisfied with their life because, they're not really getting the true experience of living, right? They're as you put it, they're reading the textbook, they're reading about it, and then they're wondering why they're not happy with their life because they're not actually living and doing it. They're not getting that true experience. So yeah, I think there is something to be said about really learning to enjoy experiencing life and not just sitting back.
Absolutely. So let me ask this question. How
Yeah.
many of us, myself included, when we're facing life, lovingly make the hard decisions? How many of us, myself included, have really, really had to struggle? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have. And I mean, I'm the first to say it about myself. I've been spoiled. I mean, I've always had a house over my head. I had parents that took care of me. I never went a week without eating food, right?
Right.
I never didn't have at least some kind of clothes on my back. And the reason I bring that up is I love the youth of today, particularly the 18 to 30, 40-year olds. They're awesome people. But I can tell you this is the absolute best invention ever, and at the same time, it's the absolute worst.
Yeah.
So the problem is for me, do I manage this or does this manage me? And
Right.
it's a constant struggle. It's a constant struggle for all of us. But I guess my challenge is think about if you make or have ever made the really hard decisions in life. I mean, like for us in the church, going on a mission, a lot of us go on a mission just because, I don't know, somebody expects us to, or that's the thing we do, or whatever.
Sure.
But if you think about it logically, you're doing what? You're taking 2 years. You're going to miss school for 2 years. You're going to be so far behind.
Yeah.
What? You're going to lose your starting position on the football team.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, what's the greatest blessing kids usually say when they come back from a mission? It was the hardest thing I ever did. I'll probably never do it again. But it was the greatest thing in my life.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's hard.
Yeah.
Because I have to live with a companion that I don't know anything about and I don't like. I have to learn a language. I'm in a foreign country. I don't have all my necessities of it. It just, are we trying to make the easier decisions in life and then wonder, why am I not learning something?
Well, and going back to what you said at the beginning too, you mentioned how, you know, a lot of these bad decisions made by people seem to stem from pride, right? And having a
Mhm.
pride. And I think when you talk about the mission and you talk about making the hard choice, I think that's um usually if you're making the hard choice, it's the opposite. You're going against your pride, right? And
Yeah,
so even
that's right.
because
Yeah.
a mission, right? You're going out, you're serving, you're giving up something that a perceived value. Maybe it's your time, or maybe it's that, football scholarship or whatever it is, right? You're giving up something of perceived value on the chance, and because you haven't experienced it yet, on the risk that maybe it isn't that much better than what I could have gone, or maybe it's not better at all. Maybe I do miss out on 2 years of my life. I could have been doing something better. But it's that it's putting your own personal pride, I guess the best way to say it, your own personal pride to the side and choosing the thing that's maybe not the most comfortable.
That's absolutely correct. I just think when we make hard decisions, it gives us greater experiences. Uh, Now, saying that, that doesn't mean you run out and make a stupid, bad, hard decision.
Yeah.
It's just there's an easy way and there's a harder way and there's a stupid way, right? There's
Yeah.
just you got to find the balance.
Hmm.
And I'm just afraid for all of us. Generally speaking, life has been really, really good. While we've had a lot of wars and contentions and a lot of crazy politics, I mean, I live in Colorado. Nobody's busting my door down,
Right.
and I'm afraid for my life. And I mean, life is relatively warm and comfortable and cozy. And sometimes, just me being weird, I'm standing underneath a hot shower and I try to remind myself, I bet you there's plenty of kings that have lived in this earth that have never had a nice hot shower like this.
That's true. Yeah. No.
And yet when the hot water goes out for 3 hours, all we do is bitch and moan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, can I say that?
You're
Can I?
fine.
Yeah.
You're good. Yeah. No, it's true. We're an overly privileged and blessed
We
generation.
are.
People.
All of us.
So
All
good.
of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. I was talking to somebody the other day and they mentioned how, and this is not exactly on topic, but it correlates a little bit. No, I think we hear about the second coming and the signs of the times, and we hear about the wars and the contentions and, all these evils taking place. And I think just naturally, where we live in this kind of the western part of the US, we, we're looking to that going, okay, when's my door going to get busted down? When are the troops going to march in, and when are we going to be? And this person I was talking to mentioned how, if we were living in the Gaza Strip or in Ukraine or in one of these other countries, to us, we probably would be going, oh my gosh, I bet this is the signs of here's the wars, here's the contentions. We're just we hear about it, we have our devices, we see it. Once again, we can take in the information, but we're not necessarily experiencing it. We're a half step removed, and probably more like a full step removed. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting because I think we as people, we can hear about things going back to your point about experiences. We can hear about things, we can learn about things, but it's not nearly the same as experiencing it. And we forget really quickly if we're not the ones actually going through it, the struggles of others.
That's exactly right. And so again, it's the perspective thing, the experience thing, the priority thing. What am I after? And I think if nothing else, if somebody listens to this and I can make a good point, just take a step back in your life, realize where you are, what you have access to, regardless of what it is. We all have things we can be grateful for. And do we choose to look at the positive or do we choose to look at the negative?
Yeah.
My wife is a classic example of that. I told her once, I go, your glass is always half full. She goes, no, it's not. It's always full. And I'm going, well, I don't even have a glass. So she's just a very positive, optimistic person, which is great. And it's great to be around. And I don't know, business, sales, whatever. I kind of think I live in the real world and there's a reality. And so we've got to balance that,
Right.
right? And it's again, just try to stay in as much a balance as you can, but expect it never to be perfect and expect it always to be moving. Just keep the dynamics not that great one way or the other.
Right. Try to find that center ground. When you've,
Right.
because you've, and we've talked about a little bit here about working in business. Obviously, you've mentioned your wife and your kids and your grandkids, and you coached as well. And I think all those roles, you're working with people and you're communicating a lot. And so, what would you say, especially where we are living in a time where I think communication is not improving. We have better and more communication than we ever have, but I wouldn't say communication skills are getting better. And in fact, they seem like they're going downhill or decreasing. So how do we fix that first and foremost? But then what are your as someone who's worked with a lot of people and you've been married a long time as well, that takes a lot of communication, a lot of effort. What are the communication skills? How do you gather those and improve upon
Manage this.
them?
Manage this. I guess that would be the first thing.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to come down hard on if you have those in the audience 18 to 30 or 35, but I've been retired now for 4 years. In the last 5 years of my career, I did a lot of interviewing.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not trying to be overly critical, but to your point about communication, oh my gosh. And I understand it. I understand technology. I understand the pros of it, but I also, I think, understand how it's amazing how many people cannot do what you and I are doing.
Yeah.
Look at each other. Yes, it's on a screen, but we're just carrying on a conversation. We're talking, we're communicating, and it is lacking big time.
Yeah.
And so my only caveat, I'm sure their 18 to 30-year-olds are going, he's just an old fart. What does he know? But you've got to stop letting technology do everything for you.
Yeah.
And you need to spend time talking and communicating and understanding people. And that's being empathetic, really hearing what they have to say and understanding it. What did Stephen Covey say? Remind me. First, seek to understand before you are understood.
Yeah.
Something like that,
That's
right?
like yes, I believe so.
Yeah. I mean that's great advice. I mean, how many people can really carry on a conversation? The people I interviewed, you're trying to just have a 20, 30-minute conversation interview, trying to find out who they are, what kind of successes can you overcome? Are you a hard worker? Give me some examples. In 20 minutes, I got to figure out who are you,
Yeah.
right? And do I want to gamble on you? And gamble, I mean, I'm paying you to go get some results for me.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a good investment? So, whatever you need to do to just start to communicate more, and just again, I'm not beating this up, but don't let this do everything for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think we've been crippled by it in a lot of ways. It's become a
We have.
crutch in our day-to-day
Absolutely.
life. And
Yeah.
it's funny too because it seems like young people, at least in conversations I've had, they've never wanted to be seen more in their life. They want to be seen. They want to feel like they're unique. They want to feel like people have interest in who they are and their story and what they do. And in doing the podcast, I've had the chance to talk to a lot of people, and every single one of them has had a unique story. And they've been people who are older, they've been people who are younger, and each one of them has a fascinating story. But yeah, you go to an airport or any public setting, and nobody has any interest in trying to learn about each other, be curious about other people. Even though that's really what I hear a lot from young people is that's what they want to be. They want to be seen. They want people to care about who they are and their story. But then you see this often at the airport. They get on their phone and avoid each other. So it is. I wonder sometimes if because of the phones and because of the technology and because it's easy to turn to that rather than go talk to a stranger. Um, if now people will just assume that nobody cares about anybody, nobody wants to talk to anybody, and so it just kind of perpetuated an issue, right? Made it worse. Yeah, I wonder that a lot because that seems to be the common crutch for people when they get nervous is just to turn to their phone and ignore everybody.
So a good challenge would be, why don't you go take a debate class
Mm.
or a public speaking class?
Yeah,
I mean, a debate class would be awesome. If I could go back into high school or college, I would definitely have taken debate,
sure.
and all that. And and again, am I choosing the harder way? Oh, absolutely. Do I want to go take a debate class? No, they're going to chew me up and spit me out. But what am I going to learn from it?
Yeah.
So sometimes we just have to stop picking the easy way and just kind of go the hard way. Harder way, I guess is a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I think it's the once again going back, it's choosing the more difficult path for sure,
Right.
and it's the more rewarding. So I gotta know you mentioned in the and I haven't touched on it. Probably is completely out of sync of the conversation, but you mentioned a story about your younger self picking sweet potatoes, I think it was, or something along those lines. And since I read it, I've been curious what that story was. So you gotta tell me.
All right. I'll try to keep it short. So I'm 16, almost 17. I'm a junior in high school. I'm playing basketball in high school. I think I'm a stud, just your typical teenager and all that. A good friend of mine and I decided to double date for the junior prom. I mean, big deal, right? I was driving junior prom, something we had planned for months. It's on a Saturday. Somewhere around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a call from this guy in the church that says, "Hey, we have an emergency. We have an emergency. There's a cold front coming through." And for those that don't understand, back in the old days, we had a steak, and a steak might have had a steak farm, and this steak farm grew sweet potatoes. So he said, we need to meet out there because if a severe frost comes in like it's predicted, it's going to ruin the entire crop and the whole crop's going to be destroyed.
Mm,
I'm 16, I'm double dating, it's junior prom, I'm driving, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
yeah,
Line up 170, 16, 17-year olds. What are they going to decide?
right.
I mean, really,
Yeah,
I have the best excuse in the world.
yeah,
So I say, "Hey, listen, sorry, I'm planned. I got this date. I can't get out of it. I'm driving. I hope you guys have a good time." And I hang up the phone,
yeah,
right? For the next hour, for some reason, I couldn't get it off. And I mean, that's never happened to me before.
yeah,
I'm not going to church today. I had no problem saying no. As a matter of fact, I was probably pretty good at it.
yeah,
So I just stewed over this and stewed over this, and I don't know why I couldn't let it go.
yeah,
Long story short, I have to call up my girlfriend, I have to call up my friend, and I have to say, "Listen, I'll meet you at the dance. I can't go because I have to pick sweet potatoes." These are not members of the church. It's in Virginia. So what do you think their response was?
not too happy, I'm sure.
"What? What are you talking about?" My girlfriend called me up and she goes, "Look, if you don't want to go, just tell me. Don't make up some stupid, crazy story. So, long story short, I decide to go out and I decide to pick sweet potatoes. I drive my car out there. I got my jeans on. I got my boots on. It is cold. It's a cold, but it's a cold, clear night. Cold front coming through in Virginia. And I'm in mud. I'm in dirt. And, for 3 hours, I'm bending over picking up sweet potatoes. But I will never, ever forget that when we were all done, I hopped on the back of this wood wagon, the tractor's pulling the flatbed wagon. I hopped on the back of the wagon, breathing heavily, and you could see my breath because I'm out of breath. It's hard, man. I worked hard for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I looked over at the corner right over there, and the sun, right? The moon was just coming up on the horizon, and it happened to be a full moon. So you talk about experiences in life. That's one of those experiences in life that I realized I did the right thing for the right reason, even though it was hard.
Mm.
And even though my friends think I'm weird and they don't understand me and all that. I ended up going to the dance in my dirty boots. I think I got there at 9:45 and it was over at 10 or something like that, or 10:30 and it was over 11, whatever the time was. I mean, my girlfriend looked at me like, "Who the crap are you?" Right? But it's what I felt spiritually, and I think the message to me there was sacrifice and doing the right thing for the right reason. You have a feeling that comes over you. You just know you did the right thing.
Yeah.
And uh, uh, I don't know why, but that is a decision that I've never, ever forgotten. And I think it's one of the strongest decisions that I've made that helped me realize there is something to be said for inspiration. I mean, why couldn't I get it off my head?
Yeah.
But the irony of the whole thing, Heavenly Father left it up to me to make the decision. So there's your agency, there's your choice, there's your consequence. And I do love in the church that they teach us a couple of principles. The first principle they teach us is sacrifice. The second is obedience. And it's kind of ironic to me that it's hard to do the first, without doing the second.
Yeah.
Mhm. Or vice versa, whether it's obedience or sacrifice. They both go together. You can't have or do one without the other. So anyway, that's my sweet potato 17-year-old. You did what?
No, I like that story. I think it's filled with good wisdom, you know. And I think this whole conversation has been filled with good wisdom of, putting yourself and some of your desires secondary to reap the real benefits of life and doing the hard thing.
Exactly. I don't think there's any other way.
Yeah.
If you always go for the easy way, how and when and where do you grow?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm sure my wife will watch this. It would be easier not to be married.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're just getting started. Hang on. It's great, marvelous, wonderful, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And people do not ever stop to think about, I'm ready to go to work. Yes, I love this person to death, but I don't care how much you love them, it's still a lot of work.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's supposed to be work. It's
Yeah.
not a panacea or a dream.
No. Yeah.
It's reality and work.
Yeah, it's the effort that gives you those experiences. The outcome's a nice little destination at the end so that you can continue on with the work. But yeah, it's the effort. And the funny part, I think most people, they look back on their life and they see the experiences that they've had and they go, if I had known if I had known what this experience would have been like, I don't know if I would have chosen that back
That's
then.
exactly right. That's exactly right. But that's okay. That's the journey. It's all about the journey that gets you to the destination where you want to go. It's just like a road map of the United States. I'm in Denver. If I want to go to New York, how many different roads and ways are there for me to get to New York? It really doesn't matter. The question is, do I really want to get to New York? And then I decide, how do I want to get there?
Yeah. No, it's a good point. What you're trying to achieve, it dictates how you approach it.
That's right. And trust me, I've taken a lot of wrong turns.
Yeah,
Mostly dead ends.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And some of them do lead out to good things at the end of the day, but yeah. But you
Yeah.
wouldn't have known if you didn't embark on that journey. So,
So
well,
let me just add this. Let me just add this. Last September, I turned 70. And so it is interesting when you get to this stage in life and you realize statistically, what are men now average? 77, 78, something like that.
uh,
I mean, when you all of a sudden get to the end of the tunnel and you realize there is an end to the tunnel and none of us escape, you do look back and think about, that's interesting.
yeah,
What have I learned? How have I grown? And just me, I do think about standing before a kind and loving judge that's, I don't think is going to judge me as much as I'm going to judge myself. What did I do? Um, I don't know if you remember, but one of the presidents of the church said, Brethren, I'm going to give you the 6 questions the Savior is going to ask you in the order. There are 6 questions out there, and it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with your job title. Did you love your wife? Give me a report of your children. How did you help the community? Yada, yada, yada. So this whole life to me at 70 years old, it's been a journey, but now I'm gaining the perspective of what I think the journey is all about. And, it's just an interesting place to be.
yeah. Oh, I love it. And I think this whole episode has been full of different little pearls of wisdom from your journey. I'm curious now, kind of to wrap it up, kind of the final question. You've got grandkids, you've got children, you've got a wife, you've lived, a full life that I think young people looking up go, man, that's a life that I would want to live. I want to have grandkids, I want to have kids, I want to achieve. So what would be, and this may be hard, what would be your piece of advice that you'd leave younger people trying to figure it out, or even your grandkids trying to figure it out? And obviously, like I said, there's been lots of pearls of wisdom along the way in this episode. But what would be the one piece of advice you'd leave the younger generation?
Again, being old and looking back, I guess I have learned for me that there are truths, there are laws. There's laws we live by in this life, speeding limits, etc. But I also believe there are eternal laws and there are eternal truths. So as an 18, 30, 45-year-old, whatever it might be, whatever your age is, my best counsel and advice is seek after those things that you truly feel inspired to follow that are not only true principles, but also true laws. And what I mean by that is I'm not a scientist, but there's the law of gravity, right? A farmer will tell you there's the law of the harvest, right? Law of thermodynamics. I mean, all these scientists know 10,000 times more than I do. But what I do know is that there is truth out there and there is error, there is good and there is bad and there is righteous and there is evil. And you got to find out for yourself what path you want to follow and what is it that you really believe in. But if you can find things that are eternal truths, then I think you're hooking your horse to a wagon that is going to last for a long, long time. I can argue and debate the law of gravity all day long, but if I throw my keys up, they're going to come down.
Right.
And, the law of the harvest, if I'm not willing to put in the work effort to plant and take care of the seeds and water it and nourish it, it's not going to grow very much. So follow those truths, figure out what they are, figure out who you are, figure out who you want to be, not only in this life, but if there is, and you believe there might be a life after this, what kind of person do you want to be? I hope that helps.
No, it's great. And I think that's if you really boil everything down, that's the real question people should be asking themselves if they want to really
Right.
find happiness in life. Right.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. We haven't chatted in a long time, but it was good to catch up. And it sounds like we'll be catching up in a few months as well. So,
Yeah, that's right. Matty, good to see you, buddy. You're awesome. Congrats on what you're doing and blessing the lives of so many people. So keep it up, buddy.
hey, awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. See ya. Bye.